Number 1. The shroud that glows. For centuries, people have been staring at this mysterious cloth like it was a holy selfie. The Shroud of Turin, a faded, ghostly image of a man's face imprinted on linen, has been claimed to be the burial shroud of Jesus himself. Historians, scientists, and conspiracy theorists have been throwing elbows over this thing for years. Some called it divine proof. Others called it the oldest art project in history. The mystery? How the heck did that image get there without paint, ink, or Photoshop filters? Turns out, the answer isn't heavenly light. It's something far less romantic, but way more metal. Recent studies using advanced imaging and chemical analysis found that the shroud's coloration comes from a thin layer of dehydrated cellulose caused by radiation-like bursts. Translation? Some kind of intense energy, possibly from early proto-photography techniques or natural chemical reactions, cooked the fibers just enough to leave a lasting image. Basically, the holy glow could have been the medieval version of a print shop accident. And if you're wondering why medieval Europe would go through all that trouble, simple. Fake relics were the Etsy shops of the Middle Ages. Pilgrims would travel miles, pay big money, and buy the myth. The shroud still fascinates millions today, but we now know it's more CSI, linen, than touched by an angel. Still, it's a good reminder that human ingenuity, especially when there's money involved, has been around way longer than your credit card debt. Number 2, the Salem witch bonfires. When you think of the Salem witch trials, your brain probably cues up images of pointy hats, pitchfork mobs, and flaming pyres. And here's the plot twist. No witches in Salem were ever burned. Not one. The whole witch burning thing? Pure imported European drama. In the actual Salem trials of 1692, accused witches were hanged or died in prison. One man was famously pressed to death under heavy stones, a punishment that sounds like medieval CrossFit. So where did the burning at the stake image come from? Historians now point to a mashup of cultural memory. In continental Europe, especially during the 1400s and 1600s, witch burnings were common, and those grisly tales traveled across the Atlantic. Add a sprinkle of 19th century romanticized history books, a dash of Hollywood horror, and suddenly everyone thinks colonial Massachusetts was basically a giant bonfire. It's one of those Mandela effect moments. The more people repeat it, the truer it feels, even if reality was way less fiery and way more bureaucratic execution paperwork. Still, hanging isn't exactly a warm and fuzzy alternative. The real horror of Salem wasn't how people died. It was how easily neighbors, ministers, and even children could decide you were a supernatural threat because you looked at someone's cow funny. Number 3, the crystal skulls. Picture this. A perfectly carved human skull, made entirely out of crystal, so smooth and flawless it looks like it was 3D printed by aliens with too much free time. These artifacts started popping up in the 19th century, supposedly from ancient Mesoamerican civilizations like the Aztecs or Mayans. For decades, they were paraded around as proof of lost super tech, mystical healing powers, or, if you read the right conspiracy forums, gifts from extraterrestrials. The catch? Every single one that's been studied in a real lab turns out to be not ancient at all. Using electron microscopes, researchers found telltale marks from rotary cutting wheels, tools invented in the 1800s. Even the quartz itself often comes from places ancient Mesoamericans didn't have access to. In other words, these mystical skulls are basically Victorian souvenirs, carved with industrial tools and sold to rich collectors who wanted bragging rights. The mystery wasn't who made them, but how did so many people fall for them? Answer: because they looked awesome. And because archaeology in the 1800s was basically a free-for-all, with treasure hunters selling artifacts to museums that didn't ask too many questions. The crystal skull myth lives on in pop culture. Indiana Jones didn't help, but the truth is more pawn shop than prophecy. Still, if you want to believe an alien carved it for you, hey, your living room, your rules. Number 4, Cleopatra's lost tomb. Cleopatra VII, last pharaoh of Egypt, expert in politics, drama, and making Roman generals fall in love, has had historians obsessing over her final resting place for centuries. Ancient writers claimed she and her lover, Mark Antony, were buried together in a grand tomb after their double suicide. but no one could find it. It became the Beyoncé of archaeology, glamorous, mysterious, and always rumored to be just about to be found. Recently, archaeologists have been closing in on a site near Taposiris Magna, a temple complex west of Alexandria. Ground-penetrating radar and exploratory digs have revealed a series of hidden tunnels and chambers that match ancient descriptions. Coins and artifacts bearing Cleopatra's face have been found there, hinting she may finally be within reach. If confirmed, it wouldn't just solve a mystery, it could rewrite chunks of Roman and Egyptian history about her final days. So why did it take so long? Alexandria's coast has shifted, earthquakes have buried structures, and frankly, ancient tomb security was better than your bank's two-factor authentication. Whether or not this exact site is the jackpot, we're closer than ever to solving it. And if we do, prepare for the world's fanciest funeral rerun. Number 5. The Super Sprinter. For decades, people have whispered about a mysterious ancient messenger who could supposedly run hundreds of miles without rest. A real-life superhero of the legs. The legend came from tales of the Tarahumara people of northern Mexico and also from Greek history, where Phidippides supposedly ran from Marathon to Athens in 490 BC to announce a military victory, before dramatically dying of exhaustion. Because nothing says celebrate like immediate cardiac arrest. The mystery was how anyone could run such absurd distances without collapsing halfway through. Was it a special diet? Mutant lungs? Some forgotten ancient training technique? Modern science finally caught up, and the answer is a mix of biomechanics, environment, and cultural adaptation. The Tarahumara, for example, use a running style with short, light steps that conserve energy, paired with thin sandals that encourage natural foot movement. They also run as part of community events, keeping a steady pace for hours or days without pushing into that painful, why am I doing this sprint mode? In ancient Greece, it's now believed Phidippides didn't just run 26 miles. Historical records suggest he actually ran about 150 miles in 2 days before the famous Marathon to Athens leg. Modern ultramarathon runners have since replicated his feats, proving the human body can, under the right conditions, handle ridiculous distances. The catch? You still have to want to, which is why the rest of us will stick to running only when chased by bees, dogs, or tax collectors. Number 6. The Antikythera machine. Imagine an ancient Greek shipwreck that coughs up a lump of corroded bronze, and it turns out to be the world's first analog computer. The Antikythera mechanism, discovered in 1901, baffled experts for decades. It had interlocking gears, inscriptions, and an eerie ability to predict astronomical positions and eclipses. Problem: how did people over 2,000 years ago make something this complex when Europe wouldn't see similar gearwork again for more than 1,000 years? Recent X-ray tomography and 3D modeling solved a lot of the puzzle. The device was a hand-cranked machine mapping the cycles of the sun, moon, and planets with stunning precision. Ancient Greek engineers basically reverse-engineered the cosmos using bronze, wood, and pure genius. It's now thought to be the work of a school influenced by Archimedes, designed for elite teaching or possibly even public demonstration, the ancient version of a flashy TED Talk prop. The real mystery isn't how it worked, we've got that now, but how such advanced tech disappeared for centuries. Some think it was a one-off masterpiece that sank with its creators. Others blame historical disasters that erased the knowledge. Either way, it's proof ancient humans were a lot closer to sci-fi inventors than we usually give them credit for. If you handed them an iPhone, they might just try to gear it up. Number 7. The vampire burials. Back in the 1600s and 1700s, parts of Europe were gripped by vampire hysteria. Villagers terrified that the dead would crawl out of their graves to snack on the living, sometimes buried suspected vampires in unconventional ways. Archaeologists have found skeletons with sickles across their necks, bricks stuffed in their mouths, and even iron stakes through their chests. You know, just in case they got any funny ideas about getting up again. The mystery for centuries was whether these were actual criminal punishments, religious rituals, or just the result of some morbid folk art. Modern analysis of these remains, along with contemporary records, has revealed something less supernatural, but equally fascinating. These vampire burials were part of a panicked public health strategy. Many of the so-called vampires died during disease outbreaks like the plague or cholera. With limited medical knowledge, villagers saw bloated corpses, blood at the mouth, and slow decomposition and thought, yep, undead. Dies danimis mormbindering. The sickles, bricks, and stakes weren't just symbolic. They were intended to physically stop bodies from moving if they reanimated. Ironically, it was all a misunderstanding of biology. The gases from decomposition can make a body appear to breathe or move slightly, and fluids can leak from the mouth, looking like a fresh kill. So, while no vampires were harmed in the making of these graves, a lot of corpses got very uncomfortable post-mortem accommodations.